podcast from the grassroots, connecting people and sharing ideas.
Hey, we are back again. This is Arlene.
Hi, this is Gowri.
And with us is a techpreneur. Is that the correct word
to
describe you? So Mike Smith, not his real name, is it? Is with us.
Trying to keep his identity protected.
His real ethnic identity as well.
So hello, good morning.
Good morning.
Thank you for joining us in the studio
Pleasure
today.
to be here.
So how did you get involved in this tech entrepreneurship?
Well, we accidentally stumbled upon this. About 10 years...
Accidentally, as in
Yeah.
you stumble upon a hot girl, that kind of...
Pretty much, yeah. It was a natural progression. It was being wooed through 10 years itself. So we started a company called iTrain. And before that, we used to work for software companies, had our own software companies ourselves too. But then we created a company where we wanted to teach people best practices in terms of how to build software. And then till today, which is 10 years now, we've expanded throughout Southeast Asia. We don't just teach people how to do app development, but even the basics like Microsoft Office, Excel, and things like that. But towards the tail end, we did a lot of mobile. When iPhone first launched and Android first launched, we were the first in the world to basically create training programs around that and teach people how to build apps. And we took the app development process to another level. We didn't just teach you how to build apps, we taught you how to market apps, how to sell apps, and basically become an entrepreneur by that. So it naturally became what we were doing today, which is an accelerator, teaching someone how to build an app and go to the market within a 3-month span. And that's how the accelerator
your job
born.
is more on the area of app development.
Yeah, so we focus a lot on the mobile stuff. You come to us with a mobile idea and a team, and we help you accelerate the development by giving you proper milestones and guidance in terms of figuring out the revenue model, the business model, but ensuring that you get something out quick. And that's the issue with startups locally in Malaysia itself. Nobody has that rapidness among them. Everything it's more of a laid-back approach. It's like a fun thing. But if you want to be a serious startup, there's some serious timelines you got to adhere to.
What is your background? How did you dabble into this?
Well, I've always been a geek at heart. My dad's a programmer. Well, he wasn't a programmer, but he programmed on the side, and he did a lot of stuff early. So I was exposed to computers at a very early age. I started coding, I think, at the age of 6 years old itself. So I did a computer science degree with USM. I dropped out of my master's in UM because that's when I started my company.
UM hates him now.
Yeah, money was more exciting.
So how did you started to be very much interested in this area of app development?
Well, when we saw the iPhone launch, we knew this was going to be the next big thing.
That was the first ever iPhone.
Yeah, that was back in 2007 itself. So we knew, in fact, before even the iPhone launch, we were doing stuff for the Microsoft Mobile, and that's more like PDA's app. So we knew the mobility was the next big thing. So we concentrated on mobile since then. That was even before 2007 itself.
Is it more competitive now? I mean, I'm sure it's a lot more people are into app development.
Yeah, as in developers, that a dime a dozen, they're everywhere itself. But people doing what we do, I mean, the fact that we could expand throughout Asia, work with people like Apple to roll this out within universities, it shows that we've got some credibility in terms of building this kind of content. So we just want to take what we did best in terms of educating people how to do things right and bring it to the whole startup space. Because it's still a very much education play here in Malaysia, even for the tech scene, because they just have never had proper guidance. Everyone's like a cowboy town doing it their own. But there's a system and there's a method to do stuff, and that's what we do. We give them guidance.
I know this is kind of cheesy, but if you want to compare young entrepreneurs, tech entrepreneurs in Kuala Lumpur with those in Silicon Valley, what would that be?
I mean, there are dumbasses in Malaysia, there's dumbasses in Silicon Valley, there's dumbasses everywhere. So that's when we go over there, it's very comforting when we go for events and we see people with ideas and pitch and what they've done. You see the crap there too, and it's comforting. I mean, idiots everywhere in the world.
But it's also in terms of the differences in culture, right?
Well, yeah,
that
so
make Silicon
over there,
Valley a Silicon Valley.
I mean, because there in the US education system, it's more of a show and tell, so you learn from young how to speak up and hustle. In Malaysia especially, this is a shut up and listen nation itself. You're told not to speak up in school itself. So that's why over here we're very tech focused. You give any Malaysian an idea to build There's no way they can't build it. I mean, these guys are really sound. So some of them might be even better than the guys in the valley itself. But in terms of coming up with an idea that could make money, that's where they lack in. And that's something that the valley, not even just the valley, it's just a US thing. They have the business acumen more than us.
Why we don't have the business acumen?
I mean, it's not put in
Besides
us within
education,
it. Yeah.
yeah.
I mean, that's the main thing. When you grow up, everybody is about go get a job, not about, hey, why don't you start up a company and be the man that gives jobs out itself. So it's just in our culture. It's not there. The older school guys have it because they had no choice when they came into the country, most of them. They had to create for themselves. But over here, it's a little bit different.
Everyone has that makan gaji mentality.
Yeah, I mean, it's easy, right? But the makan gaji guys who want to come into the startup space still don't get it itself. They think they can still have their personal luxuries, have their freaking frappuccinos in Starbucks, and live the dream as what they see on TV in this Silicon Valley shows on HBO and stuff like that. It's not that.
So what is actually the reality? If someone, let's say like us, we want to be part of this tech startup, although I'm not into tech that much.
I mean,
but
you normally see the best ideas come from people like you who are not into startups, who are not in the tech scene, because you're living your jobs and you know what could be made better in your job by bringing in possibly some kind of tech. But a tech guy just sits there and is like, he can't think of every single vertical scenario, right? But he can build something. So that's why a true startup has to have a kind of business co-founder and a technical guy. So then you leverage off each other. You need that domain expertise in anything you build.
So you have the Steve Jobs and Steve Wozniak kind of combination.
Exactly. Every company needs the three role, right? They call it the hacker, the hustler, and the hipster. You need those particular three guys. And over here, we see it's always more of the hacker role, which is the developer, and they try and learn the biz, which is, it's not too bad. Because let's say yourself, you want to set up a company, but you don't have the tech person, you'd have to invest. Either you convince the tech person to come into your company, which is quite hard because they can choose anyone, or you pay them, and that's going to cost you. Whereas the tech guy, if they really know how to code already, it's free. They can just build the minimum viable product, get it out there, and see if they can get numbers, and then eventually try and recruit a biz guy. So that's how it happens here. It's mostly tech focused.
What about investors, angel investors?
There are lots of angel investors in KL, but
Is it true?
But they may not invest in tech, right? Angel investors just invest. They like the traditional stuff. If they had so much money, they'd rather put it into an apartment downtown KLCC and get more better yield than that in a startup.
So even the angel investors have not changed their mindset in terms of what is.
I mean, the government,
in and
of course, the government here plays a very, very, sometimes too active role in Malaysia itself in terms of the startup space. And that could be a good thing, could be a bad thing, because we'll never know what. If they weren't involved, would this have organically grew and made everything better? But they're trying to basically create this whole angel networks and try and educate angel investors about working with startups and trying to give them tax reliefs and rebates itself.
But when it comes to startups and all, like you mentioned earlier, Malaysians tend to have a more laid-back approach, and that could also has to do a lot with the risk that they're taking. Because I think Warren Buffett once said, rule number 1, never lose money, and rule number 2, don't forget rule number 1. So
yeah, definitely itself. But if you're working for someone and you want to build a startup, fine, you can do it part-time. You can do it on the side. But don't think about being a high-growth startup on the side. There's no such thing as moonlighting a particular startup itself. You have to take the risk to quit your job and work on this full-time, because the idea is in 100 days, can you launch something? Now, the whole idea of course, basically doing the whole, what we call the lean method is to fail as fast as possible. You want to fail.
Okay.
Failure is good. So you know that.
So to do something and know what's wrong first.
Yeah, exactly. So if you take your time to do it, you will fail slower. And then you wasted 12 months of your life trying to figure out that this damn thing doesn't even work. Whereas to quit your job, 3 months in, figure it out, works or didn't work, and then go back to your job. Because we know talent's an issue right now, right? If you quit your job, you think your employer won't take you back, the chances of him or her finding somebody else to fit your role is going to be quite difficult. So they would welcome you back. So you may want to just take the risk. I mean, 3 months in, it's not that much.
Let's all quit our jobs for 3 months.
I mean, quit your job, start something up. If it doesn't work, freaking go back to your job. It's not rocket science. But if you try and take the safer approach, nothing ever gets achieved with that safe
I want to touch on government, because I'm glad that you mentioned something about government putting its feet too deep into the startup scene and maybe create somehow a negative vibe to it. The reason why I asked this because, as you may know, the government started this thing called MAGIC, which is the Malaysia Global Innovative and Creativity Center.
Let's see this Friday. Next budget, maybe a new agency gets put together again.
The government has been making a lot of hype over MAGIC. So I'm just wondering, what is it exactly and how bad it would be if it's moved towards the wrong kind of direction?
I mean, the fact that you don't know what MAGIC is, that's really a bad thing, right? But basically, the agency was...
I bet it has something to do with startups, but I have no idea other than that.
It has nothing to do with the song, right? Rude.
Yeah, I mean, the name itself is just, very cheekily put together itself. But yeah, it was put together to basically be that one-stop center for entrepreneurs. But, can you really put a one-stop center together? Are you talking about the guy who wants to set up his own Ramly store? You're going to basically save him and give him guidance? Or you're just talking about that 0.1% of tech startups in the country compared to the thousands or millions of people who don't even finish high school who want to set up a business? Who's helping them?
Yeah, the makcik on the road selling nasi lemak.
Entrepreneurship has been in grassroots in Malaysia. Anyone can set up a store anywhere and sell stuff. That's in that. But to get them to the next level, that's the stuff that's always been lacking.
What is the next level actually? If you want to
basically scale fast and be profitable and be sustainable itself. So you basically can...
So you're not living from day to day by scratch, but you're actually making profit out of this.
I mean, just like a traditional business, you want to make sure that if you have cash flow, you want to be sustaining 6 to 12 months ideally, right? Not paycheck by paycheck. A lot of tech startups these days, they run out of money when they start, and then they take side gigs, which is all right, but it sort of like strays you from your actual goal, and then everything gets deferred and delayed itself. So that's why programs like ours come in and sort of guides you in the proper way so that you make sure in 3 months you've got something released and then possibly then you could raise funds or have profits coming in from that already. Therefore, you don't need to raise funds.
If government really are serious about entrepreneurship, because as you know, SME, small and medium companies or enterprises, consists of 97% of businesses in Malaysia. So if government are serious to enhance the small and medium businesses, what they should do in exactly? Should
Change
they
our
just
goddamn
give funding?
education system. No. It's all about actions. Everything's a bloody event in this country itself. And you expect from this kind of little actions, these events, you want huge
Even
outcomes.
MAGIC could be
I mean, right now they're still doing events. We haven't seen what are the grassroots stuff they're going to instill to make startups better.
Apparently they are going to set up an academy.
Yeah, so that's skills-based training. Maybe that would basically help itself. But how far back are you going to take the skills? If you're telling people to pick up the skills now, it's still an afterthought. It's still a band-aid solution. The whole idea is the next blueprint of our education system is supposed to be rolling out next year. We've not really seen it completely. How much entrepreneurship are you going to put into far back in the stack, like primary school, secondary school? Are we learning stuff there? Are we experimenting with stuff at that level at the first place? If you try and do them post-university, at university level, 15, 16 years of corrupted mindset already is there. What the hell you expect to basically do towards the last end? The ones who basically excel would freaking excel themselves, right? They don't even need to basically get all your handouts. It's trying to just leverage the majority of people, give
Like
them
you
a
and
leg up.
Maverick.
Yeah. We didn't have to basically come through any government program to basically get where we were. But some other people may need to kind of reach out there itself.
So it has to go back that far, all the
Go
way
back
to
to the
primary.
roots.
So
there was a
government,
meeting. Yeah.
For government, if they want to be accountable to really grow the SME scene, is to go back and fix the education.
Fix the education, because if people, majority of the rakyat, don't even finish Form 5 and they drop out, or they just finish Form 5 but they don't have a chance to go to colleges and universities due to family commitment. These are the majority people in the world, in the country, right? Don't they have a fair chance to be an entrepreneur too? Where are things for them? So why can't we instill stuff towards the last couple of years of high school, Form 4, Form 5? If Form 4 is technically the honeymoon year, many of the things you could do at that particular level itself. But, start young. Start from the kids itself. You talk about kids in the U.S. setting up lemonade stores. Why aren't our kids doing stuff like that?
Glad that you mentioned kids. I'm just going to go to this kid. I think probably everyone in the world would know Nick Deloisio, the one that became a millionaire by just selling the app Samly to Yahoo. He was barely at that time. He was just 15 years old when he built that particular app. So are all Malaysians those that really want to be part of this app scene? Are they inspired because of this kid, like, oh, I can build like some cheesy ad and then like Yahoo would buy my ad and
I
then
mean,
become the
yeah,
millionaire?
there's always those kind of role models out there. People see all these TV shows and they get excited and want to be in the scene, but it's not all that, right? There's still a lot of hard work. You don't see the amount of work he would have done and put in to basically build that app at that age, how much time he would have sacrificed not going out and play with his friends and basically build something in his bedroom. So there are kids out there, and we definitely love to find kids like this. And that's why on our training division, iTrain, we also created a brand called iTrain Kids, where we teach kids as early as 8 years old how to build apps. And some of them...
And you put in these stories like,
I
hey,
mean, we don't even have to mention
some
stories like
links.
this. These kids already know some of this stuff. And we had some of the kids who want to become ambassadors of our program and go and get more other kids enrolled. And they're building apps for their parents, for their kedai runcit of their uncles. We've seen kids do that already. So that's where you can go far back at 6, 7 years old and start instilling stuff like this. And that will really then change our beliefs and behaviors. And then when you have all these actions put into place, these events, you have outcomes. But don't just expect, you do a week of events and bam, everyone's a freaking startup in this country. It's not going to work that way.
What about kids? Are the parents encouraging them, or is just like, oh, it's just a hobby of my kid? I'm
so
just
we
going
spoke
to
to a
fill
lot
the
of
time of
parents.
my kids.
It's a little bit of both. Parents come from a tech background, love their kids to learn at that early age. But some of them goes like, no, hell no, I don't want my kid to basically be a developer. It's like some degrading thing or something. This is just for fun because it's the school holidays. But they really don't want their kids to become a developer because...
So they want them to be in their traditional occupation.
Traditional and something that
Did
sounds
they
like they're
tell
going to
you?
make more money.
Did they tell you why though?
Because it just doesn't seem like a glamorous thing to basically put it out there to your relatives, right? I'm a developer.
Okay, so another area about entrepreneurs that they can move to the next level is the funding. For this guy, Nick, he managed to get the Hong Kong billionaire Lee Kai-shing to fund him. He was his first angel investor. But for Malaysians, I think they are pretty terrified when thinking about, hey, how can I grow my business? I only have like probably 10 ringgit in my bank account, but I have this great idea. So what would you advise them?
Figure it out. You got to build something. You can't just ask people for money without showing something itself. I mean, who's going to give you money if you have nothing but just an idea? Everyone has an idea. I can tell you I have an idea to build a space shuttle, but I need $10 billion to get it off the ground. Are you going to give it to me? Do you know if I can even build
Perhaps
it?
the hardest part for any business-minded person is to do fundraising, to convince investors to, hey, invest in my product. You will actually get benefit out of this.
I mean, that's why when you talk about real fundraising, the whole idea before you even go and fundraise outside, you're supposed to fundraise in your circle itself. Ask your family and friends. If you don't dare ask money from your family, I always baseline this itself. If you can't take money from your mom, 50 grand from your mom, and honestly think you can pay her back, don't even run that bloody startup, right? That means you don't even have commitment in yourself, confidence in yourself that you could do it. Would you take a loan? I mean, back then, if you look at traditional businesses, everyone maxed out credit cards, got personal loans to run something they believe in. So why aren't people doing that for startups? Is that a whole different ball game right now that you must get free money? You can't put your own skin in the game? So when an investor sees you've put skin in the game, there's more respect and there's more confidence within you that you believe in this because you put your own life savings in it, right? So that's something that they could do. It's not impossible to put your own money in or beg, borrow, steal, I guess.
But every Malaysian, especially young Malaysians, after they graduate, they have this keeping up with the Jonases mindset. Meaning that by the age of this, you're supposed to get married or you're supposed to have a car, your first car or your first house. But if you don't achieve it, that means there's something wrong. Yeah,
I mean, it's always, that's the Asian mentality, right? That saving face itself, where even if you set up something and you fail, it's like, how am I going to face my relatives and stuff like that? So that's the biggest thing that you basically have to overcome. That's a huge obstacle.
So how did you do that? I mean, I'm sure you didn't.
I had fantastic
tradition
parents that they couldn't give a rat's ass what I did in terms of saying that, you want to do something, just freaking go ahead and do it. You don't want to study, then don't study today and fail your exam. So they gave me the leeway of doing whatever I wanted to do.
So they never say that, oh, you have to be a very good lawyer.
Nah, I didn't have to be the typical, stereotypical Indian lawyer, doctor, engineer itself. Thank God for that. Although I did go into computer sciences, which is something of that sort. But yeah. So they gave me that freedom itself.
It's interesting how it's always those kind of parents who end up having the most brilliant kid. Well, I'm not just flattering you,
Yeah,
but but I see a lot of instances like that when parents think that they have to decide everything for the kid to make sure he goes far in life.
Yeah.
He actually doesn't. It's the one who has the freedom who actually ends up achieving more.
I mean, true. I mean, you see success also for someone who dictates to
Yeah.
say, you got to take over my throne, which is fantastic. Which is also what we see here. The old money, which is controlled by the typical Chinese in these countries with your manufacturing plants and stuff like that, they would basically make a tremendous change in this country if they start angel investing and taking up startups and adopting
Are
some
they
of their
doing
solutions.
that?
They don't, because they don't understand the scene, and they say that I've been doing this for 30, 50 years, my own Mercedes-Benzes and stuff like that. You're telling me now that your little software now can make it better? I've done this all already on my own. So it's very hard to convince them, but you see the next gen of their family taking over, the sons, the daughters taking over, and they have a bit more open mindset. So these guys, when they come in, then you're going to see things really change. So I'll give Malaysia about 2 to 3 years before you see anything serious happens here. It's still a whole seeding stage of getting them the know-how, the knowledge to basically come up with tactical and strategies to basically get to the next level.
How strong the old money is controlling the wealth of Malaysia?
Ooh, I can't put a number to it. I would safely say it's over the 80% mark itself. Like when we spoke to some of these really rich Tan Sris who's got like billions of cash and said, would you want to invest into a startup and mentor them? They go, hell no. I'm like, why?
Really?
Because they know that if they come in, they've been doing this all their while. They know how to do certain things. If they were to give advice, the typical startups these days, especially the younger Gen Ys, will not even listen to them. They'll want to do their own thing. So they will never come in and put money into something that they can't have a controlling stake. They'll want at least 51% into something, and that's going to kill a startup if you basically took 51% stake. So there's still a mismatch within this traditional guys who want to come in and help. They expect it to run traditionally, but it's a whole new ball game right now.
If they want to invest in young startups and all that, what kind of change of idea that they need to have?
I mean, they got to understand that these guys run at a different speed. They might listen to you, but they won't really listen to you.
Yeah,
Or
the
they
rebel
hear you, but they
child,
won't listen
they
to you.
have that rebel child attitude.
Yeah, exactly. So they may not understand the pace of distribution, of basically market access. But they can give you guidance somehow in terms of management skills, running a team, hiring people, or just use their credibility to hire people into your company itself. You could say, oh, this is backed by this country. Must be stable, so let's go join them itself.
Like
So-
magic.
Yeah, okay.
Just kidding.
So to all our listeners who are listening right now who are interested in what you do, or they want to become an entrepreneur, what is the one thing that you want to tell them?
I mean, the whole idea is build something you understand, build something you understand, but also build something that people love. Because the whole idea is getting users, right? And the other thing you got to remember is when you build this stuff, use lesser money than you have. That's the whole thing. Build things that people love and use lesser money than you have. And you can't go wrong with those two things itself.
Lastly, before we end the show, if I don't know whether you realize or not, but the government will be tabling the budget 2015 in tomorrow.
Yep.
So if there's one thing you want to advise the government, because the government is pretty serious in building the entrepreneurship scene in this country. Actually, he has allocated quite a huge sum of money to ensure that there's somehow a strong foundation for SMEs. But if you have one advice for the government, a recommendation of policy or whatever, what would that be?
Education blueprint. Entrepreneurship at the lowest end of stack. Get rid of subjects that we don't really care about or don't really need much. Geography, history a little bit. Lesser credit hours on those things, and put in the stuff that the next generation needs to
Give
grow
them
this-
more choice of what they want to learn.
Not so much more choice, but reduce some of the things that is not practical anymore and put in more practical stuff. Give them more practicalness.
With that, thank you very much, Mike Smith.
Thank you.
You're not real name.
Not real name.
So thank you very much for joining us. It was great talking to you.
It was fun being here. Thanks.